Oh
You know
no,
what I
you're good.
mean?
You're
Like,
good.
you're
So
back.
let's go ahead and get started. So Mia, coming from your background and just your interest, how did you get interested in storytelling? And I always say for my icebreakers, what is the one movie or show that was like, oh, I want to do this for a career?
Right, right. Okay, okay. So yes, I'll start with the film. And the film that got me to really want to do this as a career,
Hmm.
I would say unknowingly, well, knowingly loving basketball.
Oh, that's a given. That I think
And
everybody loving basketball is the top of their list.
and it wasn't even, I didn't know the story behind it when I saw it initially. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
it wasn't like that I saw it and then I was like, "Oh, I want to make movies." It was just like I saw it and it spoke to me as a woman who was a basketball player, as a
Mm-hmm.
woman, you know what I mean, who, yeah, played basketball in high school, didn't play in college, but, went into sport management, as a career, in the beginning. So yeah, so that movie spoke to me. And then, later in my career, finding out who Gina Prince Bythewood was and, how she got it made and all of her history and going to
Mm.
Sundance and applying to USC, not getting in, then writing them a letter to get in, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
all the things, all the parts of her story, like, I was just like, oh, I love her. It didn't make me want to be a director, but I was like, I love the industry. So that was one movie that I would say, really impressed me and, is my favorite.
Yeah.
And then, but I would say what really made me want to get into filmmaking was honestly a message from God. Like, and it wasn't like, okay, audible, but after I graduated from Harvard, my dad and I were on campus, and I grew up in the projects. Like I say that everywhere, and,
Yeah.
like so for me to go from the hood to Harvard, which I always say, it was a testimony, right? And my dad went from Rikers Island to righteousness. Like he was in and
Wow.
out of jail many, many years, and but when he came home the last time, because he had went to this first time felon boot camp, and that changed his life. And then he came home, got saved, and that changed his life. Really transformed his life. And so
Mm.
so basically our stories were just so crazy. He came home, started working with Mike Tyson, and just had like was always out with him in Vegas, and was at all the fights, blah blah blah, all
Yeah.
the things, right? So our life was like very different, but it's all because of God. So anyway, that like God was like, you should tell this in a story, you know what I mean? Like, so we've been thinking about this since I just celebrated my 20-year anniversary for graduating from Harvard yesterday.
Wow.
So so we've been thinking,
Congratulations.
thank you, praise
You're
God.
welcome.
So it wouldn't have been possible without Hampton University.
Mm.
But yeah, anyway, so we've been talking about this for 20 years, like, telling our story on film. And so that's what really like made me think like, okay, if we have to tell our story on film, I need to learn more about it. And that's how I really like first started to get interested in working in film.
And so for you, like I told my other, indie filmmakers, and what I feel like we had the privilege is that we just had like the 90s and 2000s of just amazing, just film of all different spectrums of Black culture. And so for you, once you kind of got into the storytelling space, what did you feel like was missing? Like, what did you feel like was missing, and what did you feel like you in your position was going to be able to fill in that storytelling?
Yes, good question.
Yeah, I knew it was going to get you a
Yes,
good
what did I feel like was missing? So I mean, other than like, our specific story, like because of course, we hear everybody has their own unique story, right? And
question.
so that's why, I encourage anybody that wants to tell their story to share it because no one has your story. So
Yeah.
other than, our specific story, I definitely was looking for just more diversity in stories about Black men, about, Black women, about, even like even the crime scene or like New York criminals, right? So
Right.
our film that we're, developing the feature for, which we have the short for, but we're looking to make a, that's the vision that God gave us, right? To make a feature film. It and I won't give it away now, but it gives a different perspective of New York in the 80s and the, you know, um, the stereotypes and stuff like that. Like it just gives a different angle of it. Every movie out, you know, you've seen a million on the drug that, you know, and shooting and the gangs and stuff
Let me
like
tell
that.
you
But you
something. If I hear one more story about the crack epidemic, I am gonna And you know what's so interesting about New York? Like you do say, you know, especially when it comes to music or just other entities, New York just doesn't have that much archive outside of the crime. Like in that era, like literally it's hip hop, crime, and then the Great Migration, and then like other things. But there's not enough, and even just some of, like you said, like some of the crime shows in the '90s. Like I remember my favorite show back in the day was NY Undercover.
Yep, New
That
York
back in the
Undercover.
day show.
Yep,
I
yep.
feel like that was the one time where they felt like it was like not too gory crime, and they were able to mix music and crime and the actual character development of the people. Because also too, what I feel like with crime shows like a Law and Order and things like that, I feel like those eras really kind of gave you the backstory of the police department, of individual characters. Like one character had a kid that he had to, you know, survive and have to deal with because the mother is not around, you know. And then there's other characters that, you know, he just an old hag, you know, and he just old. He a senior. He been up there. He hasn't found love in years. So you know what? I wish there was a crime show or just a crime show where there is a love dynamic, where it's like the sheriff been around for some years and they know he hasn't found love in forever, and his team helps him to find love. It'd be a
Hilarious. That would
different
be
take on, you
cool.
know, like a different
Yeah.
take on the crime setting, but it doesn't have to be the crime as the setting. Like it could be something totally different. Do you feel like, you know, for your perspective, do you agree on some of that dynamic?
Yes. I mean, yes, like it doesn't have to, yes. One, it doesn't always have to be crime. And then two,
Yeah.
you know, there's always this narrative of everybody from the hood is bad or everybody in the hood is, you know, connected to some kind of criminal. You know what I mean? I just was listening to this woman who's a writer, director. She's, you know, a bit of everything, playwright, you know, and she was talking, one of her phrases is hood girls can be heroes. And she wrote a book. Yeah, she wrote a book where the main character is, you know, from the hood, but you know, she's the hero, you know, of the story, her protagonist, her character. And so I was like, yes, like there's, she was talking about how there's nerds in the hood, there's, you know, people, there's lover girls in the hood, there's, you know what I mean, like different people. It doesn't have to always be the same narrative. So you know what I mean. In some, to answer your question, I feel like there was, you know, there's still some narratives that were missing, you know, when I was first coming in the industry of, you know, who is in those, you know, hoods or, you know, in those lower income, lower socioeconomic spaces. So,
and you know what? It also reminds me of another good example, Ironheart. You know, everybody sees Chicago as one thing. And I feel like Ironheart was a very interesting dynamic of showing a girl that's from a typical hood town or a typical hood city that loves tech. And how she has family that don't know nothing about what she's saying, but as long as she's making money and not getting in trouble, then they mind your business. Then they on their own. So it was interesting seeing that dynamic too, of those how environment sometimes doesn't always have to affect the character or your main, you know, or your ensemble as in general. And so for you, you know,
or if it does, it does it in a positive way.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like you learn so many skills, like, you know, having to, you know, navigate like those kind of high, you know, violence or, you know, just high things going on in spaces. So
yeah, agreed. And so for you being a founder of your own production company, what made you decide to do your own production company? Because it's one thing to do your own projects, but to have your own production company is a leap of faith for a lot of leaders. It's a lot to go through. And so what made you decide to do your own production company? And what are some of the projects that you had in your beginning slate?
Yes. So what made me want to do my own production company really came out of wanting, like not waiting for somebody to, you know, help me to get put on, right? Not waiting for somebody to, you know, produce my feature film. And so I wanted to do it myself. I was like, well, if we are going to come out with a slate of projects and things like that, like, you know, and people aren't responding. Like I applied to a few programs, did not get in, and I'm still going to continue to apply because that's part of the game, right? But I was like, I can't just wait for somebody to approve me in order for me to put out my work and put out my, stop my creativity. So
Yeah.
I said, let me start my own production company, and we are going to get some people together. I'm going to scrape up some dollars, or, ask somebody for sweat equity, put in a lot of sweat equity myself. You know that as a, founder yourself. But yeah, so that's really what it came out of, like just not waiting for somebody to do it. And I feel like you asked something else in that. Oh, what
And
were
what
some
were
of the
some of
first
your
projects?
beginning projects for that slate? Because I know for you, when most founders, they want to have like their slates coming out swinging. Some people, they'll have a certain niche that they kind of focus on for some of their projects. Like, for example, Monkey Paw mainly does a lot of like thriller, suspense. You will not see them do any type of dating love unless he wants to and want to be, throw a wild card in there. But most of the time, you're going to get that certain niche. And so for you, did you want your production company to have a certain niche, or did you want to just do everything and throw it on the canvas and just see if something sticks?
I think that I wanted to amplify the stories of people of color in particular.
Yeah.
Of course, Black stories, I would say, because really a big inspiration behind my work as well was Mike Brown. Just seeing, of course, Trayvon Martin, right? Unfortunate death, and, Tamir Rice, and we could name a million people, right? Breonna, we can name a bunch of people, but I would say that seeing Mike Brown's photo, like his graduation photo on some news outlets, and then, a photo of him in his regular clothes on other news outlets, and them calling him a thug, them saying, oh, he robbed the thug, he da da da, and acting like as an 18-year-old, like his death was his fault when somebody stood over him and shot him and made sure that he was dead. Like, no. So anyway, so since that was a part of my, I was just like, I have to get into media to share other stories, so that maybe, like, this will be the way that I fight social justice. Like, it'll be through my pen. It'll be through me making productions. So I just wanted to make productions that would show Black people and people of color in a different light, and really Black people, so many people won't get threatened. Now, granted, of course, I cannot change, white supremacy, in one film, right? Or in 200 films, right? But if I can just do something to change somebody's mindset to, not see them as a thug or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, then that's what I want to do. So I really want to amplify more diverse stories from Black people and from people of color.
And so, for you, what has been your latest project that you had? And tell us a little bit about that journey. And do you feel like it has fulfilled the mark on telling the stories that you wanted to tell, like you said in the beginning?
Yes. So one of my latest projects has been my the podcast client that I have. So I was able to bring on a podcast client. Her name is Jay Smiles. She's a comedian, and she has a podcast called Parenting Up. And we come out bi-weekly with episodes on YouTube, and it's on all like Apple Podcasts, iHeart, Spotify. And she is a comedian who is navigating caregiving for her mom, who has Alzheimer's. And so that's been a great story, because I don't hear that story, you know what I mean, a lot.
No, not often at all.
Yeah, so I've been learning a lot about, just dementia and dementia related diseases, and Alzheimer's, and the fight for caregivers, because she really is a caregiver advocate. And of course, they don't get paid, they don't get trained. They a lot of times aren't even prepared to care for their parent, or their loved one who unfortunately is suffering with this disease that doesn't have a cure yet. We're fighting to get that. But yeah, that's one of my latest projects that I'm excited about. And of course, my book, I consider that a project, for my production company.
Listen, it is.
Yep, Glow Girl. So, I really wanted to write that so that I can continue to get my story out there of, how I went from the hood to Harvard, and really encourage other girls, to do that. They can not only go from the hood to Harvard, but accomplish their biggest dreams, right? Whatever that is. So that's why I did that. And, and I now have Brown Girls Glow Live, which I can't wait to have you on.
Listen, I already said I want to be a guest. I'm so excited.
Yeah, so
Yes.
that really is in the same vein of Grow Girl, because we empower teenage girls to grow, lead, overcome, and win. That's what GLOW stands for. And so that's something weekly that I do on YouTube. And I talk about a lot of topics that I speak about in the book. It's all in the same, like how to, get into film. I talk about that, but also character development, also like just how to network, right? Building your topics like building your personal board of directors,
Yeah.
right? Things that people need to know, navigating a room, navigating a conference. I just came from American Black Film Festival. Like, how do you navigate a conference like that? 10 tips and, things like that. So I want to share the journey, because I know that people my age, when I was a teenager, are who taught me and inspired me to get into the careers that I did. So, so that's what I'm excited about.
And listen, I don't care if it's a book, a podcast, a production, especially that is in your entity, is all, listen, it's all, because you got to market it, you have to get the people out there, and you have to make sure that you have the revenue and the audience impact on the products that you have out there. So kudos to you. And so I would say, because you did piggyback off of going into the film festival route, I know a lot of indie filmmakers, we now have the era of social media and, going to events like ABFF and Sundance and things like that. But it does come with a roller coaster as well. And so tell me your experience as an indie filmmaker. Do you feel, what is some of the pros and cons when it comes to putting yourself out there with submitting to fellowships and submitting your stuff to a film festival? What are some of the pros and cons? I know for me that I just learned, and again, I'm an unscripted, so I don't really know too much of the scripted word. I'm just getting into it these last 2 years. But what I just learned is that you have to pay to submit your stuff. I did not know that at all. So tell me a little bit about the pros and cons.
Yes. So yes, when you're on a budget, or on a tight budget at least,
Yeah.
that definitely could be a con, that you do have to pay. And I remember submitting. I probably submitted to like 4 festivals last year, and we didn't get into any of them with my short film Shock. So that was hurtful. But I'm glad that I even made a short to even be able to put it, enter into festivals. So so that's I would say, if you have a budget, a small budget, then that would be a con. But and then of course the rejection, but then you really with that you turn it into something else. I mean, of course, some people say if you put it there, then sometimes you can't put it anywhere else, or somebody might take your idea, blah blah, blah, all these things. So that can be a con for some people, and that's why some people don't submit. But but overall, like attending, I would say that is, all pros for me. Just being able to meet people, being inspired. Like I said, that community is nothing like it. So, I really appreciate that I really appreciate the community aspect of festivals. And that's how I met, this man that went to my school, Phil. He told me about going to a shorter film school program. So that's why I went to New York Film Academy for 4 weeks. Yeah, in 2024. So, and that really led to me, doing 3 short films, because I was a part of that school. And then, that summer is when I filmed my short. So it was just like
that discipline and momentum.
Yeah, it built a momentum. Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah.
Wow. And so last 2 questions before we wrap out, because I know that time is time, but I know that there's so many gems that you have. The first question that I have for you, what would be your younger filmmaker self? If you had to go back and if you had that one chance to do an interview with yourself, what would be the one question that you would ask, or what you would want to tell her? Younger filmmaker self.
My younger filmmaker self. I would tell her to. Oh, that's a good question. It's like so many things, but I would say don't be afraid to take risks. Don't be afraid to take risks in filmmaking, and putting content out there. There's so many people that I've seen over the years that are just not scared to post, and not scared to share, and not scared to ask. Yeah. Right. And they're so much further along, because, sometimes a lot of times consistency beats talent. So
that's one.
What I would say.
That's a good one. And then my last question would be, any upcoming projects or anything that we need to look out for, or we need to support, and where can we follow you?
Thank you so much.
Of
But yes,
course.
yes. So you can follow me at Mia Hall TV on most platforms. Facebook is Mia's Full Court Press. But yeah. So my weekly show, y'all can tune in every Wednesday, on YouTube at Mia Hall TV. And next week, Juneteenth. I know you're talking about Juneteenth, but that's our
Yes.
7-year anniversary for Parables from the Projects podcast. So yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. The production company, Parables from the Projects Productions, started out as a podcast in 2019, Juneteenth 2019. So,
Wow.
and 19 is my favorite number because Joshua 1 verses 6 through 9, but verse 9 is my favorite scripture. But anyhow,
Yes.
but yeah, and I also gave my life to Christ on January 9th. So it's just like a lot of things
I
going on.
love that. Yo, listen, 19, that is your number. Nobody touch 19. That's hers right there.
Yeah. So look out because I'll be coming back to New York and I plan to do an event around our anniversary. So people just got to look out for that.
Wow. Listen, Mia, you have been such a joy to talk to. And like I said, your projects and all the things that you're doing within the production, like your own production company, that is a lot to even just take on. And, with the climate that we're in with the industry, there's so many people walking away altogether from creating. So kudos to you and being able to just be like you said, like, I'm gonna do boots on the ground. I'm gonna be able to do my own projects, and I'm not waiting on nobody or anything. So Mia, it was such a joy to interview you. Do you have any last affirmations or anything that you would want to give to our future storytellers that are in the woes, they want to walk away, or they just are in this stuck in between of the crossroads? What would you give the best affirmation or advice to our storytellers here?
Don't wait on a producer, produce yourself.
You have had a good word play. Now I see why you are a producer and you have your own production, because the wordplay that you have, Queen, it's clutch. It's
Thank
clutch.
you.
And I'm excited to be interviewed with you. Just let me know what time upcoming summer, and I would love to be a guest on your platform as well.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you so much, man. Keep going, keep elevating, man. You're doing amazing things, man. I can't wait to continue to follow and support you too.
Oh, thank you. Of course, like I always say with QOP, we love to live, love, collab, but also to create. And so Mia, like I said, if you support Mia, and make sure you support her empowering book, make sure you support all her projects. And like I said, this full episode will be on our QOP YouTube channel. So if you do miss the interview, don't sweat. We will have the full interview on there as well as a short clip. So please make sure that you tune in to continue to support us. If you have guests that have projects, businesses, and products that they would like to share on our platform, please DM us. We always love to tell continuing stories. And like I said, we have the YouTube channel now. So I love interviewing people outside of my role as well. So like I always say, bye, girl. I hope you have a good rest of your week. And stay cool, too, because it has been hot and things have been changing. So stay cool.
Thank you. You too.
All right, y'all. Have a good evening.